What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content with your boy, Chris Kane. Let's talk about the Dolphins. So, unfortunately, my reporting yesterday, far off. Um, we reported yesterday Calais Campbell, was still deciding, weighing options. We thought we had the catbird seat. Coach McDaniel said, hey, we think we're in a good place. He knows what we feel about him. We did the, hey, he was really good last year. He'll be good next year situation. And apparently that didn't matter. Calais is signed with Arizona Cardinals, the team that drafted him, actually. So maybe this is a full circle moment for him. Also, I do think they offer him the most money. 1 year, 5.5 million. It can be up to 7.5 depending on incentives. I don't think anybody was offering him 5.5 guaranteed up to 7.5. So I don't want to say it came down to money. I do think money was a factor because we certainly don't have the money to give him 7.5 million. We just don't. So they also drafted him, and he kind of did a full circle with us. Like I went to the U, came back to the Dolphins, like the Miami connection, but also they drafted me. I'm going back. Also, Arizona needs him. Like their D line has not been good. They play in a dome. The division's pretty solid, but they have a solid team. I like Kyler Murray. I think he's a good player. It's a good place to. People say a good place to retire. A lot of people retired Arizona, but they retired Florida too, so I can't really say that. But Arizona was not mentioned. Like I didn't in any of the research I was doing up until yesterday's episode, never saw Arizona's name. I saw contenders, I saw Buffalo, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Miami. That's it. Arizona apparently was behind the scenes doing deals, not even like colluding. They just were doing stuff behind the scenes. We didn't know Arizona was coming, and I guess they had a little bit more money to spend, and it makes sense. So that is bad for the Dolphins because we really anticipated that he might really come back. Fingers crossed. Now we have a giant vacancy on the defensive line, right? The idea of him coming back would be, all right, he's back for 1 more year. That gives us a little bit more time to kind of fortify that position. Now, that's arguably our weakest position now. Like outside of Zach, we don't really have anyone in the middle that we feel confident about. I know like the secondary as well, but we've picked up veteran free agents in the secondary. So the worst thing we can say is that we have NFL cast-offs in the secondary that are average to slightly below average. That's what we can say about the secondary. D line, we're like, we kind of we got one guy. Unless you think Benito's going to like make this giant leap, we're not really good on the line. Calais would have really fortified that for us. So him being out, very sad. Shout out to Calais. We love you down here. Would have loved for you to give us one more ride. Didn't do it. So that probably changes the draft strategy, right? We've been kind of hinting at maybe D line being more important than safety, and offensive line is the most important, but depends who's available. But we've kind of been hinting that secondary O line, secondary O line. I now think you have to go O line, D line. I think secondary takes a back seat. That might be like the fourth round pick instead of the second round pick. We'll get more into that later on, but I think this definitely changes what we're going to do because there's not a lot of good D linemen even available in free agency. So if we didn't have money for Calais, we definitely don't have any money for any high price free agents. We're kind of in a weird pickle right now. But shout out to him. Um, we got that one wrong. I'm going to tell you, got it wrong. Speaking of D linemen, the Dolphins set up a meeting with Keontae Hamilton, who was a defensive lineman from Rutgers. And so private meetings in this situation are players who didn't go to the combine can sometimes meet with teams who think their tape is good, think they're a good player, but they weren't invited to the combine. They just do pro days. And, oh, you showed up on pro day. Well, you may be a guy for us in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round. That's kind of how this works out. Keontae wasn't invited to the combine at all. Not everybody that's a prospect goes to the combine. It's kind of based on where we think you might possibly get drafted. Sometimes people opt out of it because they prefer to do a pro day because pro days are at your own facility. Let's say you're a quarterback. You may not want to go to the combine because your pro day is you at your facility with your receivers. You get a little bit more time in between, work on drills or skills that you don't think you're good at, and you don't want the combine test. You kind of want to do your own thing. So even if you're invited, you don't always go. But some people just don't get invited. Like they didn't invite Shiloh Sanders to the combine. They just said you're gonna be too low of a pick. We're not inviting you. But just because you don't go to the combine doesn't mean you're not a good prospect. Sometimes you could be a D2, a D3 guy. You could be a D1 guy that maybe got overshadowed by someone on your own team, and you just don't make it. But based on his pro day at Rutgers, he turned some heads. 29 reps on a 225 bench press is crazy. That's just like he knocked it out. 6'3", 305, like really prototypical size in there. Good hands. Like this tape is actually pretty solid. I don't know why he wasn't thought of as a bigger prospect. Like his measurables aren't off the charts, but they're certainly within range of most defensive linemen. And Rutgers is not a great school, but it's certainly not like some bum level 1-win team school. So I don't quite understand what happened with this. But the fact that we're meeting with him means that we know we have an issue on D-line. He won't be a first or second round pick, so we can get that out. But again, we have 9 picks. It's possible that we're in the 5th round and he's floating around. And it's like, hey, he might have a 6th round grade, but we get to meet with him. You get to figure out the temperament of the kid. He's projected to be more of a nose tackle 3 technique, so he's more or less in the middle of the defensive line. And sometimes you want to meet with the kid, like, hey, why did you fall in the draft? Like, if you transferred 2 or 3 times, what happened? Family emergencies? Is it, a money grab because NIL type stuff? Let me figure out who this kid is before. And if you like the cut of their jib a little bit, and you think they could be a potential sleeper, then maybe you make a play for him. Because the worst thing that happens, he goes undrafted and he just picks his own team. Because, he's up in the Jersey area. He might just go to the Giants or to the Jets and just because they love dinner at home. By making this play, it puts him on the board. I'm sure he's not even our first top 5 D-line prospect. But when you get in the later rounds, you start trying to figure out what guys can maybe fill out the roster that could have an impact. That's where these kind of meetings really, really show. Because people think of the draft as being like the first 3 rounds is like everything, right? Those are the picks that are on TV. Like the first 3 rounds are on TV. They're doing the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. This person ran the 4-4, whatever. And then like the 4th through 7th rounds, they just kind of blitz through them. But most rosters are made up of those players. And sometimes those people emerge. You also like they're lesser financial commitments. So this guy could maybe be like a rotational piece as a 5th, 6th round pick. That's beautiful because now you're playing. We know you're going to come and give us your best because you were kind of undrafted. You were lowly drafted. You feel maybe disrespected by it. Also, you're a relatively cheap player. So that's awesome. So I don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm sure he's meeting with other teams as well. But I don't cover other teams. So I'm not talking about that. But I like that we're stepping outside of the first few rounds. Because almost certainly he's a 5th, 6th, 7th round prospect. But if he's a guy that we think could possibly be a guy that's in a rotation, then let's get those meetings on the books and maybe like start trying to funnel him in the right direction. In addition to meeting with Keontae, we also met with a bunch of quarterbacks over the draft. We talked about, not Hamilton, Jalen Milroe. We've talked about, Ole Miss quarterback, Jackson Dart. Brain just like, phew. I was thinking Eli Manning. I'm like, we didn't meet with Eli Manning. But one of the quarterbacks we've met with recently is Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was an Ohio State transfer to Texas. A lot of people thought he was actually going to stay in college this year because he had a lot of prospects. Like Notre Dame needs a quarterback. Florida State is always looking for a quarterback. Ohio State needs a quarterback again, actually. And Quinn Ewers said, nah, I'm going to the draft, which is wild because he's probably a 5th or 6th round pick, at best a 4th round pick, and he had a lot of money left on the vine. There's a lot of college money for Quinn Ewers. And the fact that he decided, I don't want the college money, I want to get out of here, more power to you. Because there are a lot of people being like, hey, let me go back to college, get that couple million, and I'll figure out the pros. I think Quinn would have done himself a lot of stock. His stock would have improved had he stayed in college. But I also can't tell someone, don't go out and get to this money. If you think next year's draft class is going to be crazy and maybe you don't compete with those guys, because this is a relatively weaker draft class comparatively. So I understand the logic being next year I'm going to be QB 7 or 8. He's probably QB 5 or 6 in this draft. So based on that, the draft might really push me down 6, 7, 8th round. In this draft, I can be as high as a 4, probably as low as a 6. I get the, ceiling and floor thing. I'll be perfectly honest about how I feel about Quinn Ewers. I don't get the hype. I don't get it. Y'all know I'm king SEC guy. Watched him at Texas. Bah. Like, I thought he was good in spots. I think he's relatively accurate. I think he had a track team of receivers and running backs around him. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's bad. I'm not going to like trash him. I have a 5th-round grade on him. If he's your quarterback 6 or 7, cool. If you have him 2nd, 3rd round, I don't know what you're watching. I don't see a super crazy arm. He's moderately athletic. I don't see a ton of intangibles. I think he's kind of a guy. I would prefer a guy like Kyle McCord, who is probably they're like here in the draft stock, depending on what you like. I think Kyle McCord's arm is better. Quinn's probably more athletic. So you got to figure out what do you want in the quarterback. I don't get the hype. I think he's slightly above average. However, I do think the Dolphins should draft another quarterback because y'all also know how I feel about Zach Wilson. And then he's only on a 1-year deal. And if he's a backup all year, he's probably not going to want to sign up to be a backup again next year. Not with the Dolphins anyway. So we maybe have Zach for a year and then he'll be off on his own thing, trying to compete for a job. So you need to bring in someone now who's cheap, as a rookie, that can back up Tua, that we feel like can possibly step in and run the offense if Tua gets hurt, but also is cheap enough to pay them a lot of money. I don't know if Quinn Ewers is the answer. I'm not anti-Quinn. If we get him at the 5th, 6th round pick, we have 2 5th-round picks, like 5 picks apart. So if we get Quinn and then like Keontae back-to-back, I would say that's a pretty good 5th round. You got maybe a rotational D lineman, maybe your backup quarterback in the future. I'm fine with it. Any pick higher than 5th round, I don't know what we're doing. I don't get it. I think this the Texas shine being put on him. I don't think he's great. If we get him at the right price, I'm cool with it. That's my pace. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in once again to Dolphins Daily. We appreciate the love and support. You guys always kill it with the likes and subscribes. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you guys next time on Dolphins Daily. Peace.